Sonic the Hedgehog has won basically every single fight he's been against, and if he lost, he always came back and won again. And some people may think that it's because of plot armor that Sonic has some of these wins, but nonetheless, Sonic is always declared the victor at the end of the day. Now again, it's up in the air if Sonic deserved to win some of the fights that he's won, or even won them in the first place, but I'm actually here today to propose 5 characters that I believe could beat Sonic the Hedgehog given the right time. This list will be ordered from least to most controversial, so you're going to want to stick around to the end of the video to see who I'm talking about really could beat Sonic, even if you may not agree with me. And as always, if you like videos like these and want to see more content like it in the future, don't forget to leave a like on the video, subscribe to the channel, and turn on the post notifications bell so you never miss a video from me. You guys do not want to miss what I have to say. At my number 5 spot, the least controversial character that I believe could beat Sonic the Hedgehog is Shadow. I think this is pretty cut and dry, very simple, because Shadow and Sonic have been known to be equals in many ways. I mean, even in their second encounter in Sonic Adventure 2, the only reason their fight didn't end was because it was a stalemate and the island was going to blow up in a matter of minutes. Then of course, in their last fight in the game, it's assumed that Sonic is the victor, because if he wasn't, he wouldn't have been able to make it to this exact point. These two characters don't fight against each other very much, but when they do, they're always equals, and Shadow never takes off his inhibitor rings. I'm not saying it's required for Shadow to take off his inhibitor rings to beat Sonic, but I certainly do think that the odds would be more in his favor if he did so. Moving along further down the rung of controversiality, I gotta say that Silver the Hedgehog could also beat Sonic. Now here's the thing, when it comes to Silver and Sonic, I feel like there is, again, very equal footing to some degree. Though I often have to give the upper hand to Sonic in most cases just because he's the main character and he does have plot armor, but Silver actually does have a history of beating Sonic. In their first encounter in Sonic the Hedgehog 2006, Silver actually threw Sonic against the wall and basically had him pinned down. We can also see that Sonic is basically breathless in this scene and Silver seems to be perfectly fine, meaning that Sonic likely hasn't done too much or any damage at all to Silver. If Amy didn't show up, who knows what would have happened next. Having said that, more often than not, Sonic has been known to beat Silver, it's just the way the cookie crumbles. That said, this video is strictly about who can beat Sonic the Hedgehog, not who will 100% guaranteed beat Sonic. My money is still on Sonic any day of the week, but Silver still has a chance. Once again, moving down a rung in the list of controversiality, I'm going to say Blaze the Cat could beat Sonic the Hedgehog. I actually do believe that there's a legitimate case to be made that Blaze beating Sonic is more likely than Silver beating Sonic, but the only reason why Blaze falls further down on the list is because Silver has proven history. Yes, I am aware that you do fight against Blaze in Sonic Rush, and if you play as Blaze, you actually do beat Sonic, but it's sort of like how in Sonic Adventure 2 you could play as Shadow and beat Sonic that way. But even having said that, I think it's still important to recognize here that Blaze is still in a position here to beat Sonic. The two of them are in equal footing throughout this game. And this makes a lot of sense if you think about it too, because Blaze serves as the alternate dimension version of Sonic. Both characters are extremely fast, have super forms, and fight against an Eggman of some variety. Not to mention, Blaze's shoes are literally just Sonic's, but like heels. Having said all of that, yeah, I'm gonna be honest with you, I actually think this might be less controversial than the Silver take, but we're just gonna move on now. Now this next pick is going to need a lot of explaining, so I'm just gonna need you guys to stick with me, because this character I'm going to say can beat Sonic the Hedgehog is Infinite. Now I know it's customary to rag on this character because of the bad writing and the bad game it came from, but I think it's still important to remember just how important Infinite was in Eggman's success in basically conquering the world. Much like many of the other Sonic characters mentioned earlier on this list, Sonic loses to Infinite in his first encounter. Just as a quick side note, the reason why Sonic seems to consistently lose against all of these characters in his first encounter is because it makes sense for the story to work that way. If Sonic were to win that early on, the villain wouldn't really be seen as a threat later. But as far as an in-universe explanation goes, Sonic usually just doesn't have a grasp on how to fight this individual yet, maybe because he doesn't understand their powers or just because their moves are foreign to him. Either way, Infinite won in this first fight because he was able to throw Sonic off. Having all of these villains in front of him and fight against him, made Sonic perplexed. Chaos, I think, was probably the most confusing person or being there in the first place, and that would have easily sent me back if I were Sonic. But regardless, as time went on, Sonic actually began to counter against Infinite and beat him in every single encounter afterwards. The last one he did have the help of the custom hero, but I think that is an actual fair fight considering that Infinite can make doubles if he wants to. I also don't think, as far as this fight goes, Sonic needed the custom hero to be there with him in the first place. I think he would have been fine enough on his own, but the whole point of the game was teamwork, so they had to do it together. With that being said, Infinite can make doubles, but he doesn't for some reason in every single fight after the first one. I mean, yeah, he did in that second fight with Sonic when he was kind of making all those duplicate versions of himself, that way Sonic could hit them and get closer to him, but those weren't the same as the first ones he showcased early on. These doubles seem to disappear after being hit just one time, but we actually saw early on in the game where Sonic hit Zavok, the clone version, and nothing exactly happened to him. What this tells me is that Infinite has the power to modulate the strength of his illusions. In other words, if Infinite wanted to, he could do exactly what he did the first time when he fought Sonic and make very strong clones of Sonic's enemies and also fight alongside them. But for some reason or another, after doing it the first time, he doesn't do it again. There's also the interesting fact that there were tons of clones during the final battle of the game, and all of them seem to get knocked out in just one hit. So I don't know if this has something to do with using tons of clones at one time causes basically burnout for the Phantom Ruby and it can only create like really weak ones. But even still, the fact that he can create this many is still overwhelming, and it required an entire team of individuals to take them all down. Essentially what I'm saying here with this analysis is that Infinite, in order to beat Sonic, would have to make tons of very strong clones, or even just a few very strong clones, and fight alongside them. Initially, I said that this pick was controversial, but I think after doing the proper analysis, you can probably understand where I'm coming from in saying that Infinite could beat Sonic. Before we jump off into my final selection, I want to give an honorable mention to Knuckles the Echidna. I think that he's another character who could beat Sonic, but just didn't exactly make the cut on this list. We know that Knuckles has the strength and chaos powers to knock the Chaos Emeralds out of Sonic if he goes into supersonic form. So what does that say about what he can do when he's fighting Sonic just regularly? Outside of his first debut in Sonic 3 and Knuckles, and a few other occurrences after that, these two characters do not fight really at all. They're always on each other's side. The reason why I didn't put Knuckles on the list though is because of Sonic's quickness and agility. I think that he could probably get the runaround on Knuckles. Not to mention, I think Sonic is a quicker thinker than Knuckles is. It most definitely would be a close fight, but again, Sonic has the edge here. Although I can't say the exact same thing about my last pick, and I think this is the most controversial, but once again, you have to hear me out. And that character is Tails the Fox. Now, the reason I picked Tails is because unlike every other character in this series, no one, and I mean no one, understands Sonic like the way Tails does. Tails is not just Sonic's best friend, but really a Sonic enthusiast. He knows all Sonic's strengths and his weaknesses. Not to mention, Tails is smart and even smarter than Eggman. So I'm just gonna put two and two together and say that if Tails really wanted to, he could beat Sonic because of his smarts and what he knows about Sonic. Unlike every character on this list I've mentioned before, these two characters have never fought outside of small arguments here and there, which are pretty rare anyway. But there have been multiple occasions where these two characters were set up to fight each other, but it just didn't come to fruition. However, with Sonic Prime, I cannot wait to see what they do with 9. This is exactly what I think they've been hyping us up for years, and I hope the execution is amazing, because these two characters fighting, I think, would be one of the coolest and most interesting battles in the series. Yes, I am aware that the two characters did fight in the Archie comics because I think Sonic, started dating the girl Tails liked or something. I don't know, but it sounded interesting. I haven't read it yet, but even still, what do you guys think about this list? Do you agree with all the characters I picked, or do you disagree with a couple, or maybe even all of them? Let me know in the comment section down below. But anyway, thank you all again so much for watching. This is SONICSTA signing out. Have a super blessed day, y'all.
Why are you playing that trash?